Well, good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Aquarium Online Academy. We're back online for our 2 o'clock program today, Thursday. Sorry I had to cut the last one short. Things happen. But we're going to be talking about a new topic for 2 p.m. We're going to be talking about sharks and rays. So if you love sharks and rays, just like we all love sharks and rays here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, this is the best time. Because we're going to be spending the next half an hour talking about their feeding habits, characteristics of them, and learning a little bit about an endangered group of sharks and rays that we don't even know a whole lot about. So if you have questions during our program, text this number right here, 562-286-1838. Now just remember that text rates do apply, so make sure if you're one of our younger viewers, you have the permission of an adult around you to text in and ask us some questions about sharks and rays. Okay, Jen's on the controls, so she's going to give me some amazing shark footage right here. And Kaya is on question control. So Kaya will be feeding some of the questions into the studio that you have. If we can't get to all of them, don't worry, we'll still answer your questions. Now, if you are watching and it's not Thursday at 2 p.m., you can still ask us questions. You can email us at live@lbaop.org, and you can email our educators questions and we'll answer them. Or maybe your questions need more explanation. Go ahead and send us an email so that we can answer them for you. Well, here's our first kind of shark let's talk about. Does it look like a shark to you? It's a little bit of a different kind of shark. Doesn't really look like a shark that I would think of, doesn't it? Well, what looks different about this shark compared to one you may have already had in your mind? Were you thinking of a shark when we mentioned sharks and rays? What was different from this one? Maybe some coloring. Our bamboo sharks here are kind of a tannish brown color. Some of them have spots, like the white spotted bamboo shark. And then these are the brown banded bamboo sharks. If you want a tongue twister, try and say brown banded bamboo shark many times. It's kind of tough. What else is different about them besides color? Because there's sharks that kind of have a tan coloring. Angel sharks kind of have not the kind of gray and white color we think of. What else do you notice about these sharks? They like to cuddle. They're the friendliest. It's not so much that they're friendly, but they are smaller sharks, and they do group together in that safety in numbers idea, so that if they're grouped together, a predator may not be able to pick one out. Or maybe they don't look like one little shark. They look like one big shark. So the safety numbers that schooling or shoaling provides, these sharks do that too. I noticed this little fin. Now, that's not the fin for that shark. That's the fin for the shark behind it. Look at how far back the dorsal fin is on this shark. That looks very different from like a great white shark or a black-tip reef shark that we typically would think of as the stereotypical shark. But this is a whole lot more normal in terms of types of sharks. Their dorsal fin on this one is much farther because of where they live. They live in mangrove groupings or mangrove swamp, coastal waters, coral reefs. They live in spaces where they have to squeeze their little heads into things to get their food out. And also, if they cuddle together, if they have really tall dorsal fins that are farther forward on the body, it makes it harder for them to do all the things that bamboo sharks do. So this is one of my favorite types of sharks to talk about because it's very different than the shark that we think of whenever we think of a basic kind of shark. This is more like what we think of, isn't it? This is the gray reef shark. This is a beautiful photo of one of our sharks here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. Now, one of the things you might notice is that it's got a pointed nose, very triangular fin, forked tail. Looks very much like a shark you would imagine. Now, the characteristics of sharks are that they do have fins for many sharks. Not all sharks have all 8 fins, but most of them have this 8-fin setup. They have 5 gill slits or openings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Except for 2 kinds of sharks. There's 2 kinds of sharks that have more than that. And they have very creative, very unoriginal names. The 6-gill shark and the 7-gill shark. All right, so they're very exact on what they look like, because those are the only kinds that we have found so far that have more than 5 gill openings. Other fish, like the goldfish in your fish tank, or bony fish like Nemo Dory, or anything you think of that has, like a normal fish that we think of as a fish, has bones in its body, has 1 gill opening per side, whereas sharks have a cartilage-based skeleton, 5 gill openings per side. And sharks are actually very diverse. There's over 470 kinds of sharks, and there's a lot of differences between the different kinds of sharks. Now, the great shark still has a black-ended tail, and a few of these fins have black tips, but Unlike the blacktip reef shark, their dorsal fin and their pectoral fins are all gray. So there's a little bit of difference. They're still a reef shark. They hang out on the reefs. They'll be in groups together, but they're not really schooling together like other fish do. They do group up. Now, our shark lagoon habitat has, I believe, 2 or 3 of them. We have a few blacktip reef sharks out there too, like this one. So you can see some of the differences. The blacktip reef shark has a little bit more gray to white change from the dorsal to ventral or back to belly side. And it has black ends of all of its fins. That's where it gets the name blacktip reef shark, whereas the other one was the gray reef shark. Now let's see if we can take a look at Shark Lagoon and look at some differences in what the sharks are doing outside at our exhibit. There's a zebra shark. Oh, wait a minute. Do you see any stripes on that zebra shark? Once it gets back on the camera view. There's no stripes on it. When they're babies, they do have black and white marks that are stripes and spots. So that's where they get the name zebra shark from. When they grow, the stripes, that's not it. I was hoping that was the one. The stripes kind of fade to this almost leopard sandy colored print pattern. So their body does change in coloring from, oh, there it is, from juvenile or child to adult version. Not all sharks do that, but some sharks can. And the cool thing about the zebra sharks, there's another one, is that they have the adaptation or this extra special ability for allowing them to survive to sit on the floor. They can sit still. Let's try and look at the reef sharks. So here's a blacktip back there. There's a gray reef shark down there. There's the tail of a zebra shark teasing us. Oh, there's a fin. Well, we just actually bumped the camera. Watch the sharks. Do the sharks ever really pause and stop? No, I don't think they do. The zebra sharks can. Now, they're kind of active right now because in the afternoon, they do get fed most days. Not every day at the same exact time right now, but they do get fed every day. And the time of day, you can kind of tell they're a little more active because they're used to being fed around this time. Well, sometimes if you check out our webcam of our live Shark Lagoon camera, which is what we're watching right now, you'll get to see the zebra sharks sleeping in the sand. Kind of like that one could if it stopped. But the other ones have to swim, so we call them ram ventilators. They have to swim to breathe. They have to force the water in over their gills in order for them to get oxygen. The zebra shark is what we call a buccal pumper, which it will pump its mouth to get water over its gills so it can breathe. The bamboo sharks and that zebra shark have another special ability they share with the rays, whereas they have a visible or open spiracle in the back of their head, behind their eyes. It allows them to breathe. It's like having extra nose parts in the back of your head to breathe. But what is their nose for then if it's not for breathing? It is still for smelling, but the spiracles are an extra opening to pull water in, to push water over their gills so that they can sit still if their face is in the sand. Now, Jen's looking for some pictures for us, but let's see if we can take a look at a picture of a ray real quick, and we'll compare sharks and rays together because they belong to the same overall large group. So let's take a look at a ray and see if we can find some similarities. What do you notice is similar between some of the sharks we've seen already and the stingray? The color patterns are not too similar, but similar enough. They're dark on the back, light on the belly. Not every shark has that pattern. That zebra shark, that one did not. But a lot of them do have a difference of colors called countershading. A lot of animals in the ocean have countershading. You can even see it on the other ray in the background. This is the back of it, and underneath you can see the light belly. Now, if you look real close right there, you can actually count. There's 5 gill slits per side. So they share that characteristic too. Only this tiny little dorsal fin on their tail. So most stingrays won't have any big fins on their body. Here's another one. This is another type of eagle ray, I believe. And there's a little fin on its tail. It has these big, wide, flapping fins to allow it to move around. Manta rays do that. They have really big, wide fins. Manta rays are not stingrays, but they are a type of ray. They're the biggest of all the rays. They can get up to 20 feet wide. That's an immense size animal. That is so big. Here is... this is either a mobula ray or a manta ray. I think it's a mobula. But that's okay. Take a look. There's those gill openings. Oh, they've got huge gill openings underneath them. Now, they're a pelagic or open ocean animal, so you probably won't see them in the sand too often. But just like their cousins that do hang out in the sand, they have the same effect. So look right next to the eyes. Hey, don't go anyway. our whiptail ray, she's like, no, no, thanks, I don't want to. But that opening right next to the eye you saw, that's the spiracle. That's kind of the breathing opening that they have in the back of their head. Ooh, don't go anywhere. I like this one right here. Wait, what is this one in the back? That's long nose. It's got fins like a shark. But it's not a shark. We unfortunately don't have this animal. She went to another facility to help with a breeding program because the large-toothed sawfish, which that one is critically endangered. Now, we'll talk about endangered animals in a little bit. But the large-toothed sawfish, I can say brown-bedded bamboo shark better than large-toothed sawfish. The sawfish has a body more like a shark, but the rest of it is more like a ray. So we'll talk about some animals that kind of share characteristics in both sides of the spectrum too. All right. Well, we should talk about size because a lot of our young viewers always ask about size. But before we get into that, Bella asked, do any sharks eat coral? Not as far as I know. Sharks eat a lot of things, but coral's not really one of them. If you think about what coral is, I have a bucket of coral. Hold on. Coral is this really hard, rocky structure. This is limestone. So the coral creates this rocky exoskeleton or outside skeleton for it to live in. It's pretty tough to chew this up and digest it. Now, some fish can. Those are the parrotfish. There's a few other fish that do that, but parrotfish not only have the teeth in the front of their mouth to bite stuff, they have teeth in their throat to munch and crunch the food. That would be very different for us. Can you imagine if you could keep chewing your food as it went down your throat? That's a weird feeling. Gosh, I don't even like it when I swallow ice cream too fast. Well, parrotfish have that special adaptation to chew on coral. Sharks don't have that. Sharks do have an amazing variety of tooth shape, which tells you what they eat. So pointy long teeth are going to tell you that they eat slippery animals or bigger animals. But if they're like a zebra shark, they have little tiny teeth. And here's our great tooth comparison models right here. Now, these two jaws come from the same size of shark. Two different species of shark. What? How is that possible? So this one is the zebra shark jaw. Okay. Now, if you look at the zebra shark, she's on the ground. Remember, we said they can stop swimming. They don't have to move to breathe. And their mouth kind of points down. It means they're going to be grabbing their food from the sea floor or underneath them. So here's a comparison. Here's a zebra shark moving around. When we feed them, they have to be near a surface or we have to put the food underneath their mouth. Here's one of our stingrays feeding in the same spot. So look at that. They kind of suck in their food. They actually have a really, really big sucking noise. Like sucking the food. Now here's big teeth grabbing and swallowing. So shark teeth are really not made for chewing like we chew our food. They're meant to grab and either tear the food like a great white, because great whites tend to eat very big animals. They need to tear off a bit before they swallow it, or it's meant to grab and swallow or munch a shell briefly before they swallow it. So the tooth shape tells you a lot about what they're going to eat. Now this is one of the cutest but also goofiest pictures. This is the mouth of a shark, and there's little nares, the two little nostrils. This is a Port Jackson shark, which has a very interesting jaw where they have these little tiny triangular, kind of rounded hard teeth up front, almost like a zebra shark. And in the back, they have really rounded, hard teeth to crunch shells with. Where here we go. Here's my Port Jackson jaw. Let me set these other two down, and we'll take a look at the Port Jackson jaw. Was this the shark teeth that you imagined when we said we would talk about shark teeth? Very different than shark teeth we think of. So they have rounded, hard teeth that are meant for crunching shells. And the front ones are kind of these rounded triangles that will grab some of the food, but not really slippery fish. They're probably going to be eating stuff with thin or lightweight shells that they can crunch and break open before they start chewing on stuff. Now, sharks are predators. They do get food. They have to hunt for their prey. Sometimes they scavenge. So imagine that great white again. That great white is going to be eating very differently than this horn shark will. So the horn shark stays on the ground, and it will grab crustaceans or echinoderms, which are things like urchins. They'll grab them off the sea floor and chew on them. But a great white is open ocean. Great white. And sometimes their food is very big, but also has deceased or died. And so they'll eat like whales or other large mammals that have died but are still floating in the water. So they will be a scavenger, but also an active predator. They'll chase after their food. But they are all predators. And there's one kind of special shark that we just learned about that has teeth a little bit more like our Port Jackson. Actually, that's upside down. Yep, kind of like our Port Jackson. And that's the Bonnethead Shark. We have a really fun video of one of our bonnetheads. It is a hammerhead. It just doesn't look like it's full grown yet. But a hammerhead just has a widened head like this. This bonnethead is just the smallest of the hammerhead family. They only get maybe 4 feet long, not very big sharks. And they still have that wide kind of shovel or scoop to their face, which allows them to find food a little bit easier than some other sharks. They have a lot of extra sensory parts to their face to allow them to sense the weak electric field that all living things create. But they have teeth that combine for eating different things. Cool thing though, scientists just discovered very, very recently that bonnethead shark is not a strict carnivore. It will eat plant-like material. It's an omnivore. In a lot of cases, it's only an herbivore. Some of them are only eating plant-like material. So their bodies are capable of digesting meat and plants. So that makes them technically an omnivore. Like we are an omnivore, but sometimes we choose to not eat meat products. So that makes us a vegetarian. Our bodies could digest it, but we make a choice as to what we are going to eat. Sharks do like to choose what their favorite food are, but their bodies are able to eat both of those, at least the bonnethead is. All the other sharks, as far as we know, are pretty much just a strict carnivore. They'll only eat other animals. Okay, we said we're going to talk about sizes. So now if you ever wanted to try and measure sizes on your own, you might need some special tools. So there's an experiment you can try probably after our class, because otherwise it means you have to go outside and you'd miss the rest of the class. So after class, go outside if you can and take a tape measure or a yardstick with you, and you can measure the sizes of sharks. Most sharks on the planet, are you ready, are about your size. 3 feet long is about all they get, like the bamboo sharks. The bamboo sharks maybe get 3 feet long. So that's about 50% of all sharks are their size. Like the size of some of my nieces and nephews. Not even tall enough to reach the bottom of the camera screen. That's it. That's as much as they get up to. So if you're just going to generally find a shark anywhere, statistically you'd find a tiny one. Like that horn shark we saw a picture of too. The horn sharks only get about 3 feet also. Now, 2/3 of all sharks are getting close to the 6 to 7 foot mark. So that's like the blacktip reef shark. Those gray reef sharks. So they are about the size of up to 2/3 of all sharks. Remember, that includes all the little ones. Some that get up to 6 feet long. Now, you want to talk about sharks that get over 10 feet long. That's a very small percentage. And only a few of the species get to be the huge sharks. So if you wanted to measure yourself out like sharks, 3 feet, or if you're one of our young viewers, put your arms out like you're going to grab something I'm throwing at you like a ball or a football, right? The V you just made is about 3 feet. That is a bamboo shark. You can also use the yardstick, which is 3 feet, or a measuring tape to get out to 3 feet, and you get a bamboo shark. You want to measure it up to 6 feet long. That's like the black tips. Some of our smaller zebra sharks, because zebra sharks actually can range up to 10 feet. And our sand tiger shark is about 10 feet long too. This is a sand tiger shark. So it still looks pretty shark-like, right? Big fins, big body, triangle-shaped teeth. A little bit different than the zebra shark, but that's okay. Zebra sharks are still beautiful sharks. You want to get bigger, though, you're going to need a little extra space. Maybe you'll need a long room or a few yardsticks. Maybe your family can help with this one, because if you want to be the size of a great white shark, the great white shark was recorded at a maximum of about 20 to 22 feet long. That's longer than a large SUV sometimes. Ooh, that's a big animal. 20 feet long. Actually, one of the biggest ones we think was ever recorded was found right off of here at Catalina. We were all like, oh, because we think of them as scary because they're big animals. They're adapted to the ocean. We can play and have fun in the ocean. We can't swim as well as they can. Think of an Olympic swimmer like Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps is swimming as fast as I can briskly walk down the street, right? It doesn't seem that fast now, does it? Some of these sharks are swimming as fast as you do, or as fast as your cars would move through the city. Mako sharks are swimming at 40 miles an hour or more. That's pretty fast. So, sharks are much better adapted to swimming around in the water, hiding in nooks and crannies like the bamboo sharks, than we are. So, we think of them as scary, but they're really not that scary. A lot of our divers that are here as volunteers have been in the water with sharks that we think of as scary, and there was no threat because we let them be them in the ocean. Just be like, you be a shark, I'm gonna be a diver. We can cohabitate. We can be together without harming each other. So, sharks may look scary, but they're really, really cool. Sharks have been around longer than the dinosaurs. Sharks have been on our planet for, I think, 350 million years? 450. I was 100 million off. In the grand scheme of things, at the age of the planet, that's not that much. Guy's like, no, 450. I'm like, all right, 450 million years. That's a long time ago. But they've been around a long time. They've had a long time to adapt to their environment. So they're really, really good at being sharks in the ocean. But there's a danger to them. Not us. There's a danger to sharks and rays and their cousins. And it's usually human caused. So let's talk about conservation. What do we need to do to preserve these beautiful, amazing animals, the big ones and the small ones, all the amazing sharks? Well, let's talk about a couple that are kind of really endangered. The Rhino Rays are a special group of animals that we're just learning about. I don't even know a whole lot about them, and the scientists that know more than I do still don't know a whole lot about them. Now, while Jen's finding pictures of them, Gage is asking, what's the difference between a shark and a ray? Well, they're in the same group. They're called an elasmobranch. So they both have cartilage skeletons. They both have teeth that they lose throughout their life. They both have 5 sets of gills on each side. But the differences are body shape, fin types. Remember, stingrays and like manta rays and a few of the other types of rays, or skates. Skates are cousins to rays. They have bodies like this. They're flattened like pancake sharks. Think of them as a pancake shark. If a shark were a pancake, that would be it. So that's how it works. Their bodies are flatter. They don't have the same style of fins, but they do have very similar bodies. Now, their food will be different because they have different teeth. So that's another thing to think about. Teeth equal food. The type of tooth you have tells you the type of food you're going to eat. So great question from Gage. Gage is one of our longtime viewers. Thanks for tuning in again, Gage. Let's go back to that picture of a rhino ray, because Gage's question kind of helps with this. What's the difference between a ray and a shark? Well, this one looks like both. Nature has an interesting sense of humor. It's like a ray here, but a shark there. I don't get it. Some things have characteristics of different animals because they've adapted these special abilities for their habitat. Where they are living, they need special abilities to survive. So let's make a couple observations about the rhino ray. Now, if you were hoping they had huge old rhinoceros horns like a rhinoceros, I was hoping so too when I heard they were called rhino rays. But that's okay. They don't have giant horns like a rhinoceros. Rhinoceros have that. They can keep that characteristic. Or narwhals. Narwhals kind of did it too. What else do you see on the rhino ray? One of my favorite parts about them, especially this one, look at the color pattern as it changes throughout the body. This is so amazing. It's kind of a solid color here. They have thorny ridges. Could you imagine if your eyebrows were thorny ridges? Would you always look a little like, Argh? Well, they kind of do, but they're very friendly. And then the color patterns fade into these spots towards the back of the body. So their bodies are like the front half of a ray, the back half of a shark. All of it is very special. Now, the reason that they're endangered is because they're bycatch. Now, bycatch is when you go fishing for things, like as a commercial fisher, and you trawl or you net and you grab a bunch of things. You wanted to catch this one kind of fish, but instead you caught a couple of them. That's bycatch. It was the thing that you did not intend to catch. So because people are fishing for certain things where they live, in a certain way that is not the safest for Rhino Rays, Rhino Rays are being caught. Now, how could you help the Rhino Rays? That's the tough part. There's not as much as we can do for them as we could do for other species, because the seafood that those fishers are collecting is only sold locally. So it's not like I could even support a different brand because it's a local system. Now, don't feel defeated. We can still help them. If we start talking about them, we educate each other about them, we start sharing this information across the internet that we're on right now, we can start to change the message. If we change the message, we can change behavior. When we change behavior, we change the culture. And when we change the culture for the better, we can save the animals and the habitats and still use those spaces for our needs. So if we responsibly and sustainably source seafood where they live, we can exclude them from what we catch. Now, an example of how this worked is like sea turtles. People would pull nets behind a boat, a bunch of seafood, and turtles would get caught. Well, they figured out how to get turtles out of the net by creating a special trap door for turtles to get out, called a turtle exclusion device. But maybe you, at home watching, will be the person that invents that new technology. Maybe you will be the one that helps inspire the next person to invent that technology. We never know what effect we're going to have on each other. So if we all start working towards learning about the special animals that are endangered, we can help affect the next part of the story and create the ending that we really want, which is to save these beautiful animals. Now, other species of sharks and rays are endangered too. It's not just the Rhino Rays. Over 2/3 of all of the types of sharks and rays are endangered or threatened in some way. So we have a special mission. For all of you at home and for all of us here in the studio, we're going to do our part to make sure we are talking to each other about sharks and rays, showing all the beautiful things they do, all the amazing aspects of them. They're not that scary. They're so pretty. If we stop thinking of them as the scary, dangerous things, we can start treating them as the necessity to the environment that they are. They're very important to our environments. They're very special to the environment. They help clean out a lot of the animals that need to be removed. Like, think of wolves and elk. When wolves are hunting elk, they often will prey upon an elk that is not able to keep up with the pack, is sick or injured in some way, which actually helps the health of the elk. So sharks will do that for other fish species. They're taking out fish that are not as good at being that fish, and that's okay. That's part of how nature works. That is how natural selection happens and how animals become very well adapted to their environment. So we need to keep them in the environment so that they can do their job. They have a very important role, remember. So sharks are spread out through all sorts of habitats. On the seafloor, like the bamboo sharks, in the coral reef, or in a kelp forest even, like our leopard shark here local to California, or they're out in the open ocean like blue sharks, thresher sharks, great white sharks. They're out in all these different kinds of spaces. I'm throwing a whole lot of curveballs at Jen. She's like, oh gosh, I need more pictures. Because there's so many kinds of sharks, we don't even have pictures of all 470 species. We couldn't show you pictures of all 470 species in 30 minutes of time. That's how cool they are. Here's a blue shark. Now, they're very sleek. They're a whole lot more like submarine or torpedo shaped than those great white sharks. But they're still kind of torpedo bulgy in the middle. Right there. We call it fusiform. If you're kind of a football shape in the ocean, you're fusiform. Almost like the shape of a lemon, but not as wide, squished lemon. Pretty close. So sharks generally have this fusiform shape. Remember, stingrays and other rays are pancake sharks. They're flat. They're what we call a depressed shape. Not depressed in terms of emotion, depressed as in flattened. You've depressed it down, so it's a pancake shark, stingray. Now, blue sharks, we've actually seen open water here in Southern California on the whale watch boats that we partner with Harbor Breeze Cruises. So that's kind of cool. We've seen at least 5 or 6 species of sharks on our trips when we're looking for whales, and we can see sharks here locally in California. Southern California is also a nursery for white sharks. Baby great whites come here. That's important. If this space wasn't here for them to have their babies, well, guess what? There wouldn't be as many. So we might be afraid that, oh, there's more great whites in this area. Well, maybe it's okay to be a little cautious. You probably should be a little cautious because we're going into a habitat we're not adapted to if we go into the ocean. But the fact that there's more great white babies that show up in Southern California means we're doing the right thing. We are allowing them to survive in that habitat or helping them survive in that habitat so they can do their job. All right, we've run out of time today. I appreciate all of you tuning in and learning about sharks and rays and conservation with us today. If your questions were not yet answered or they need a little bit more extensive answer, or you're not watching live here on Thursday afternoon, email us right there live@lbaop.org, and we'll help answer more of your questions about sharks and rays. Well, all right, we got more programming coming tomorrow, Friday, so tune in tomorrow. We'll have another team of educators here to help you all learn as much as possible about the lovely aquatic world. From us here in the studio, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday.